All right. Welcome to everyone who is listening or tuning into this podcast. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by Curtis Kennedy, who is the founder and CEO at Symbodi Labs, formerly Vertiball. Just went through a rebrand, right?
Yeah. And thank you for having me on, Ryan. To everyone watching, the company wouldn't be where it is without the help of Ryan and Power Media. They were a instrumental part in getting the business off the ground. So very much respect the insight and information that comes out of this guy's mouth. So
look at that, butter me up already. Well, thanks, buddy. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that, and appreciate you taking the time to jump on. I think you've had quite the journey. And it's going to be really valuable for a lot of people who, are in a position that you once were to get some insights on what it's been like for you and all the success that you've had as well. So really appreciate you taking the time and jumping on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, buddy. Got any plans for Halloween yet?
No plans for Halloween. I think it's going to be a very last minute preparation, throw together a costume when the time comes and the work week is over. So we'll see what happens.
You must have something tucked away in the closet that you can pull out, put together.
For sure. I'll get creative on it.
Right on, buddy. Well, listen, let's kick things off. And why don't you start by giving us just the backstory of Vertiball? It's an interesting story. And why you started the company in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So Vertiball is a precision massage device that uses this industrial grade suction pad to lock onto the walls. So it gives users the ability to put it on the wall at a specific height, target areas of their body with complete control over how much pressure they apply. So the idea behind it sort of came from my life of having a really bad back since I was 11 years old. I'd been rolling around on a golf ball on the ground after school every day, and I couldn't believe that pinning a ball up against the wall or laying on top of it on the ground, I couldn't believe that was the best solution that there was, considering back and muscle pain represent one of the world's most common health problems. So when I got to university, I was studying mechanical engineering, and I knew that I wanted to start a business while I was going to school. Figured it would be a good time, low risk, and if it fails while I'm doing my extracurriculars after school, then it's not at a loss of time for me. Instead, like if I were to start a business straight out of school. So I went for it, and it was a lot of iterations, a lot of interesting lessons, but eventually we got the product manufactured and brought it to market. So it's been quite the interesting journey so far. And I guess just to give a little bit of context about the system and its functionality. So we designed it with the ability to have interchangeable attachments. So you lock it into the mounting system like that once it's placed on the wall. And then this newest attachment, which we came out with last week, so it just has a different purpose. It caters to specific muscle groups better. And our long-term goal for this first product segment is to develop a wide range of products that make back and muscle pain, a thing of the past. So, yeah.
Amazing, man. And let me tell you, for anyone listening, this thing feels good. We've, as Curtis mentioned, we've had the the pleasure of working alongside of Vertiball, Symbodi over the last couple of years, and we have, we've been shooting a lot of content in the past as well, and so we got these things kicking around the office. I got them around my house, and as someone who doesn't actually experience back pain, it's kind of funny how much I use it, but this thing is amazing. And I mean, as you mentioned, obviously, this product was made by you to solve a problem that you currently had. And I think that's something that I think it's something that gives people an advantage opposed to people that are just jumping into a business for the sake of starting a business, because it can be hard it's competitive, right? The e-commerce landscape is very competitive. And so I certainly think that, it's more work, no question, to, take an idea and bring a product to life. But it allows you to, position yourself as or at least be first to market with a solution, and really help position you well. And we'll jump into that later. But I remember, Kurt, I guess for anyone listening, to add a little context here, Curtis and I both went to the same university. We both took engineering. And so we had some overlapping friend groups. And I remember being over at Curtis's place and having a couple pops and seeing the 3D printer going to work, running on one of the first iterations of this thing.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, man. Seeing the basement of your guys' place, just pretty much a little production facility.
Yeah, just
R&D
littered in
shop
prototypes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. Cool. So I guess like when you started working on this, was the plan always to turn it into a business, or at first was it just something that you wanted for yourself?
Well, actually, I knew that I wanted to start a business while I was going to school. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but this wasn't the first product that I took a stab at. So right after my first year university, I actually came up with this idea for an oral hygiene product. And at that point in time, I had no idea about, how to start a business or what the first things you do are. And so I sort of thought to myself, I was like, oh, I get this awesome product idea. What do I have to do? And I was like, oh, I should learn to write patents. So I took the summer and wrote a provisional patent application for this oral hygiene product and filed it. And just for anyone who's listening, that is not the approach to starting a business. Patent comes way down the road after you've validated that customers actually want this product and that you're going to be able to sell it, make money, and furthermore, you've reached the final design before you try to develop any intellectual property. So that was sort of I had that going, and I got feedback from a few people when I got back to school the next year, and it was sort of like ho hum responses to like, this is kind of cool, but like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people thought it was a stupid idea. No one told me. Anyway, I had that on the back burner, but at the same time, I started to think, what are my own biggest personal problems? Because it's likely that I will find the best solution if it's a big problem of mine. If I'm trying to solve somebody else's problem, you think about it in a different way. And so I sort of, on a daily basis, back in muscle pain. So I was like, but there's going to be a better way to do this, and started exploring a whole bunch of different ideas, and eventually landed on the mobile mounting system concept, and just sort of went from there.
Yeah, man, I love that. And again, I think it's something that, obviously, like, not all products, like there's exceptions for sure, but a lot of, consumer products, a lot of them are solving pain points, right? Whether it's directly solving a problem, indirectly solving like a psychological problem, if it's confidence, right? Or things like that. But and I agree with you, I think when you solve a problem that you actually have, that I definitely think you think of things in a unique way. You think of things, you actually have that problem. And so I think it helps on actually making a product that is going to solve the problem better than anyone else. And I don't think that you necessarily need to have a brand new product in its own category. But if you can do something better, more efficiently, save people time, save people money, or just, convenience, you're going to be in a much better position to market that. And in the world we live in, obviously e-commerce is booming right now, right? And I think it's very hard to compete on price. And because obviously you have Amazon one click away with the biggest selection of products, prices, and when you're selling something that does just as good as the next competitor, it's very hard to price it, at a premium price point, and then you get into a price competition, which it's a very hard game to win. And so I love that. I love that. I actually didn't know about the oral care idea either.
I won't embarrass myself by pitching it to the audience, but yeah. So just to add to your point, and sort of a useful piece of information that's sort of helped me think about product design and coming up with a new solution is I got exposed to content that Elon Musk was pushing out about 8 years ago, and I really fell in love with the guy and just the way he thought about things. And there's one concept in particular that he spoke of. It's called first principle design thinking. It's so there's two ways to think about solving a problem. You can think analogously, where you look at the existing solutions and see how you can make improvements to those solutions, or you can think about, explore it in terms of first principles, where you boil the problem down to its fundamental truths, not considering what's already been made. You boil it down and then build outwards from there. And it's likely that you'll come up with something novel that takes a different approach and may in fact solve the problem better than the industry that's been built around the same sorts of innovation. So yeah.
100%. No, and I love that. And I actually remember watching a video where Elon was talking about this too. And when he was talking about, I think this was about the electric batteries, if I'm not mistaken, talking about how people were saying it's impossible because electric batteries are just too expensive to make an electric car. And said, well, that's not true. Like already manufactured batteries are, but if we can source the materials, the raw materials at a discounted cost in bulk, then we're looking at a whole different ballgame here. And I definitely think I agree. It's a powerful way of thinking, and love that you've adopted that. So you talked about the patents and how you filed the patent for the oral care. You learned how to write patents. And so obviously Vertiball, now Symbodi, has patents. Do you think that that's a skill that that is worth learning on your own once you have a product, a final design, a product that you're ready to take to market? Or do you think that that's something that you can be easily outsourced?
Yeah, it's good to have a general understanding of how intellectual property works and being savvy in it, so you can navigate conversations around your IP. But absolutely, you don't need to learn to write patents, and I would recommend that you don't, because there's people that have been working for their whole lives, and that's their primary focus. And a patent is only as valuable as the words that were written to establish it. So if you have a patent but it's not strong patent, then there's no point of it. So if that's an avenue that you're going to pursue, definitely try to work with talented people that know what they're doing.
Love it. Talking about the product development process, I think there's a lot of people. I remember, there's people commenting on the ads all the time saying, you guys stole this idea from me. I had this idea 5 years ago. Whether it's trolls or people that actually did have the idea. There's a lot of people with a lot of ideas, a lot of good ideas. And it can seem overwhelming to actually think about taking one of those ideas and making it become a reality. And I think, it's whether it's something that is, you just have that itch inside of you already, that entrepreneurial itch, or if it's something that can be learned and kind of developed over time. I certainly think it is. But what would you like? Where does someone start when it comes to taking an idea and actually looking at bringing that thing into the real world? And I mean, obviously, you have a mechanical engineering background, and I think there's certain advantages there with just the ability to even know how to make a 3D printer work, which I certainly don't. But touch on that.
I think you got to give yourself some credit. And I guess the thing I'll say is you don't, and I'm talking specific to hardware, like physical products, software. What I'll say here, I guess some things will apply, but it's more specific to physical products. And you don't need any prior knowledge to get started on it. Like if you have a product idea, start with a sketch on paper. Put together an idea of what you think it will look like, and then there's so many tools in this day and age that make something like this really easy. And all you need is access to a 3D printer and a 3D modeling software, which The one I would recommend to anyone listening, if you don't already have a go-to, is Fusion 360. It's an Autodesk program. And if you take a week and a half, 2 weeks, and fool around on the program, you'll know exactly how to make your thing. It may not, the curves and the aesthetics of it may not turn out like you'd had imagined in the perfect reality, but in terms of like the core functionality, those programs are really user friendly, and you do not need to have any engineering background. You just have to have a general sense of geometry, like circles, lines, squares, and rectangles, because basically you start out sketching on a two-dimensional plane, and then you use tools to pull those sketches into a three-dimensional object. So anybody can learn 3D modeling quite easily. And then 3D printing is very accessible too. You can buy a 3D printer for $200, and you export your designs.
Really?
Oh yeah, There's
And
there's
I
some
was
really,
thinking they're like 10K.
no. So I guess that's a different conversation. It depends. If you're looking for really high tolerance, which at this point in time where we're at, that's sort of where we're headed. But I just started with a very base model 3D printer, and it got the job done. So I'd say start there. If you got an idea, do some drawings, get a 3D modeling software, and get access to a 3D printer, and just go ham at it. And you'll get better and better with time, and your designs and your prototypes will get better and better with time as well.
Amazing. Cool. So, I mean, what's like in your experience? So you have a product, that you made on a 3D printer, and you are like, hey, I want to move forward and manufacture this. Where in your, in your journey, what was your next steps there? Did you go look for manufacturers right away? Did you look for people that had experience locally to go overseas and look for manufacturing? And yeah, how do you go about that?
So I guess the thing to consider along your prototyping journey is that there's two sides of the coin. There's, you develop a product, but you also need to have the money to finance the manufacturing for that product. And so I was 21 years old at the time, trying to figure out how I'm gonna, get together $400,000 or something like that. And that seems like a lot of money at the time for a young kid that's got a $2,000 Nissan. And anyway, I started out by going to banks to ask for money, and instantly get the doors slammed on my face, because they don't want to use my $2,000 Nissan as an asset that can be leveraged. So
oh man, Nissan's a good car.
It is a great car. Nothing to say about wrong to say about Nissan for sure. But just that's always one thing to consider is, as you're designing the product, you need to understand what it's going to cost you to make it. So while I was probably version 2 of my product, which ended up turning into 220 different iterations. Note, you don't have to iterate that much. I just got really fixated on trying to make it perfect. But at version 2, I reached out to different manufacturers on Alibaba. Like, I found a manufacturer that made springs. I made a manufacturer that made suction cups. I found a variety of different manufacturers, and I put together these RFQ, or request for quote, documents, where you say, here's my 3D file. Could you give me a quote for like a part cost for an order of 5,000, order of 10,000, and an order of 20,000? And you say those 3 volumes because you want to understand volume pricing, and as it changes with time. And as on the manufacturing side, they want to see that you're thinking bigger. You're thinking beyond that first 5,000 unit order. And so that's one thing. Once you understand, okay, here's what my parts are going to cost to be manufactured. The other side of it is, what is it going to cost to invest in the plastic injection mold to produce these parts? So that's where a big expense out of the gate comes in, because plastic injection molds, can run anywhere from, depending on the complexity of your part, can be anything from $3,000 to $35,000 per mold. So, I guess as you're designing, just make sure to check in on the manufacturing cost, and you can do that through going through Alibaba, and that'll sort of give you a frame of reference as you're moving forward, because you'll know what the product is going to cost to make. Can I sell it at a price that is going to make sense to the customer and still make me money? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if your product is too expensive to produce and customers aren't willing to pay for what you need to sustain business, then there's no sense in doing it. So as much as the functionality is important, it's also important to understand the business model as you go along.
100%. Couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of people get themselves into a little bit of trouble when it comes to this, because maybe there's a product that makes complete sense to market retail, but the plan is to go direct to consumer, right? Like, you know, maybe you're shipping liquids or things that are really heavy. And the numbers have to make sense, right? And you know, it's got to make sense at scale, at volume, and keeping in mind too that there's going to be an acquisition cost associated with driving customers into your business if that's the avenue that you want to go, right? And obviously with paid ads, you can move a lot faster. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the numbers need to make sense. And was there anything that you like from the original quotes you got? Were you able to negotiate lower costs over time? And was there any specific strategies that worked good for you?
So I sort of had a very, very scrambling approach to figuring out manufacturing. Originally, my plan was I want to make the product in Canada at a manufacturing facility that I can drive to. And so that was the plan for the whole way. I had a sense of cost from speaking with manufacturers in China and what like my sourced components were going to cost. But I just the whole way through the plan was to do it in Canada. And when it got down to the nitty gritty and we were ready to go and our molds were about to be done, it turned out that it was going to be far too expensive to make it in China. Like you got to consider the fact. So say you're just theoretically, if you're trying to sell a product for $35 and then you have a manufacturing cost of $15, then it's like, say you wanted to sell to brick and mortar retail stores. Okay, so then you wholesale price it to them. Usually the standard is like you double your manufacturing cost. And so then you're at $30, but the retailer wants to mark it up 50% or 100% as well. So they want to double that and get their return too. So then all of a sudden your cost on the shelf is $60, but that was beyond your originally planned selling price. And you know, if you can't sell the product, you can't do it. And so that's what happened with us last minute when we got our costs in Canada. It was just going to be too expensive to sell the product at the price we thought it was going to be reasonable. And so I hopped on a plane out to China and did about 2.5 weeks of touring around, knocking on doors and trying to scramble and figure out meetings last minute. So very lucky that it all ended up working out in the end. It was quite the journey.
Yeah, you've taken a few trips to China, haven't you?
Yeah, the first year of manufacturing over there, it was 5 trips in one calendar year. 4 of them were specifically for manufacturing. Yeah.
Crazy. I heard it's awesome over there.
It's quite awesome. Different world completely. Absolutely,
No doubt.
absolutely love it. Love the mentality of productivity and doing really great work. Yeah, there's highly skilled people over there. It's just about finding them and getting in the right place.
Right on. Talking on kind of branding, positioning, pricing, while we're on the topic, when you first were launching Vertiball, was the current price point relatively close? Like, was it the same as where it's at today? And how did you look at pricing it? Was there any like kind of reference points that you used, or was it more of a trial and error? Like I remember there was a little bit of trial and error originally when we launched, moving the price around a little bit. But when you initially took it to market, where was your head at there?
So I had spent a long time developing the product without um, really considering the long-term economics of it. And so, thankfully it worked out. But for anyone starting a company, um, there's this concept of economies of scale. Um, so you, ideally, when you don't have a lot of money, you sell a high priced good in low quantities. And then with time, you then have like a medium price good at medium quantities, and then a low price good at very high quantities. It's sort of like what Tesla has done with their vehicles. They started with the Roadster, and then they went to the midsize sedan, and now they're at the Model 3, which is the affordable vehicle to the masses. And just in terms of your financial situation as a company with very limited resources out of the gate, if you can find a way to sell, 200 things at $600, it's going to be a lot easier to grow and scale than if you're trying to sell a $15 item in really high volumes. So when you're thinking about where you're going to price this thing, strongly consider to think about, would the product benefit from additional features that would bring up the perceived value? Like, could we add some electronics to it that would, all of a sudden when there's electronics added to things, it's like a different story than just like a mechanically functioning product.
Like AI,
So
throw AI in your name and you're good to go.
yeah, or it's like for we just made a manual massager, but had we thrown like a vibration element to it, our pricing conversation wouldn't be $40, $50, $60. It would be $150, $200. So those are things to consider, because if starting out, the higher you can price your thing, the lower volumes you can do, the better, the quickly you're going to be able to move forward into that next phase of bringing up volumes and potentially looking at different product lines. So I guess another thing to note, which is an important piece of insight that I got from a podcast with James Dyson on it. James Dyson, his first product ever was called the ball barrow. It was a wheelbarrow that had a ball on the front of it. And it was this new innovative technology, and it was awesome. And it got brought into stores, and it didn't perform well because the mistake that he made was he had this new innovative technology, but he priced it like competitive to other products that weren't comparable. They didn't have the innovativeness of James Dyson's product. And so he made it his mission from that point forward. If I come up with an innovative technology or solution, I'm going to price it accordingly, because the market will pay for it. And we'll, in doing that, and in having a premium price point, it actually helps you from a branding perspective too, to be seen as a premium brand. To have an identity that people want to be associated with, like people want to have a Apple computer, or Dolce. Like, it's just, if you have a higher price point, it does nothing but help your brand. So aim high, and talk to customers through your development journey. And if you end up having a lower price point than you originally intended to, that's fine. Just make sure that the economics of it work out from your cost of goods sold.
Yeah, 100%. That, and I think that's huge. I think that's an amazing point that you bring up. I think a lot of people, when they're looking at their business, whether they're taking a product to market or they're trying to troubleshoot why maybe sales, revenue, profit isn't as good as they'd like it to be, they think, well, I gotta reduce the cost and more people will buy. But that's not always the case. And even if it is, then there's a whole other side of the equation of keeping in mind the acquisition costs, right? And profit per order. There's a lot of things that you have to juggle as well. And I think you touched on a great point with just branding and positioning a product as a premium solution. I think that's huge. And a lot of times there's the prices and costs are one thing, and value is a whole other thing, a whole other conversation, right? And when there's a perceived value with what you're selling, or a real tangible value with what you're selling, people will pay if there's a big enough market, and unless you're in an extremely tiny market, which is rare with direct to consumer goods, then I think it's a great point you bring up, and maybe investing a little bit more time in the product development phase to make sure that there is that premium price point. So yeah, man, I absolutely love that. Cool. Let's jump into talking about the marketing and the advertising and all that good stuff that obviously we've been working on to sell the product, and it's crazy, man. I remember right when you guys finished the Kickstarter, we met up, and you're like, I think that was right around the time when I was still drop shipping products from China.
Yeah.
And it actually was part of the reason I transitioned into the client work side of things, the agency space. And yeah, I remember us going to shoot video at at UMD together, and just launching ads. And I think so this has been a good run, right? Like so far, it's
absolutely
over $1 million in ad spend, and not a lot of businesses can do that profitably. So I'd like to jump into some of the challenges and really what moved the needle, and we can talk about seasonality and positioning as well. And I think one of the biggest challenges was to communicate how good this product actually feels was a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Ryan, he started out with us. I kind of consider Ryan he was a part of the founding crew of getting this product off the ground, because we were in uncharted territory, because it's a novel concept for how to approach back and muscle pain. Lots of people perceive a suction cup as something that holds your Christmas wreath on your door, but little did they know that it's a suction system that can support over 100 pounds of weight. And so one of the biggest challenges was, we've got this novel product. How do we communicate it to people? How it works, 2, why it works, and 3, why this is going to be so important to your life. And really the core value proposition of the product is the fact that it makes your body really accessible, so that it can fit up with your everyday life. It's not too big of a hassle. You don't got to get on the ground at the office to roll on your foam roller. You can stand up, drink a coffee, and it really simplifies things so that feeling good can be a part of your everyday life. And just figuring out the messaging and working through that and how to explain it to people is challenging. And furthermore, for our product specifically, it's kind of hard to shoot content for, because whenever anyone's using it, it's behind them, it's on the wall, and they're rubbing against it. So there's very limited angles in which you can get good shots. So there was definitely as it was challenging out of the gate, and that kind of flows into what I'll say next is, when you launch a new product, it's not just going to be like, boom, you've got it all figured out, you've got profitable ads right out of the gate. I mean, it could happen, but it's very likely that you're going to need to take a period of time to learn and understand what people react to, what they're engaging with, what words resonate with people, and what images and what doesn't. And that's not something that typically just comes from intuition. It's something that comes from testing and really trying to understand your audience and your target customer. So as you're going into thinking about launching a brand and a product through e-commerce, make sure that you're in a position financially to have a little bit of backing, so that you can test and you can fail at some things and try to get creative with your approach, because you want to be able to remain dynamic in that first point of time while you're figuring it out, and what the best approach is.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously with paid media, especially on social media platforms, they're also creative driven, right? And it's there's not a whole lot of people have first of all, such a short attention span.
Mhm.
And so being able to hook people in so you can actually hit them with the message and hit them with the value proposition, have testimonials, user generate content, people explaining how damn amazing this product is,
Mhm.
takes a lot of work. And it's interesting because we've invested a lot of money in certain creatives and they've tanked, right?
Mhm.
And then we've had creatives where shot on an iPhone and kind of, in an afternoon, and it ends up being one of the best performing ads of all times.
Mhm.
But I think one thing on the creative front that remains constant is you really need to keep in mind that people are not going to be watching your message, especially in listening, consuming your content, especially if it looks and feels like an ad, right? Like there's two different conversations we could have. There's the branding side where you're showing like on brand content, and obviously a lot of the bigger brands are doing it. And there's a performance creative, which is its goal is to drive revenue and drive
Mhm.
return on that ad spend. And
Mhm.
oftentimes those they can overlap for sure, and you can build different pieces into different parts of your advertising strategy. But especially on like Facebook and Instagram, no one's going there to buy. People are going there to be entertained, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's going even more in that direction now with TikTok has come out, and it completely changed the way people kill time and consume content, right? Like there's a ton of entertainment, a ton of education, a ton of like hacks, and just like hilarious shit on TikTok.
Mhm.
And that's why when you run ads on TikTok too that are clearly look like ads, they stand out so much more.
Mhm.
And I think that's the direction that things are going on all platforms. You look at Facebook coming out with Reels, and trying to basically mimic their TikTok's platform. Zuckerberg straight up said TikTok is one of the most effective platforms they've ever had to face. And so that's like that mixed with like iOS, everything that's going on. I think first of all, you need to be able to test different things, test volume, and it doesn't necessarily mean you need to invest a shit ton of money in content, but at least have someone who can constantly be iterating and testing, because small tweaks can make a big difference, especially when you're looking at leading clips and the first thing that's actually drawing people in. And the second thing that I'll say is user generated content is extremely powerful, but it needs to be authentic and feel real. And
Absolutely.
that's one thing that a lot of people struggle with, is whether they go through different platforms or recording it themselves. The whole point of user generated content is to be a review, right? A testimonial, share their experience, and if it's not authentic, then it stands out as like a sore thumb. And I think that's one thing that you guys have done extremely well through the help of a platform like Coley, and is really get a large volume of positive feedback and authentic positive feedback. You look at the reviews, and the reviews are amazing, and that's a testament to what you've built in the product. And
Appreciate that.
and that just helps out the marketing efforts so much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So let's kind of switch directions here a little bit. Talking about managing a team, like you guys have a team, a pretty lean team internally. And I know, speaking from my experience, I transitioned around the time that we started working together from doing the kind of solopreneur thing to bringing on team members to help out with various tasks, and having teams in house. And one of the struggles for me was, obviously it was new, it was foreign. I went from went from, just working on my own schedule to all of a sudden you have people looking to you for direction. And did I lose you there?
You did. I think I'm still following though.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So how's that been for you?
Yeah, well, I think team, as you get going, team is the most important thing. If you can find talented people to work with, it really makes the world of difference if everyone's sort of the master of their own domain. So originally out of the gate, I was the solo founder and I was doing a lot. There was a high volume of things that needed to get done, and I'm a very slow, methodical thinker that is challenged by an abundance of tasks all at once. I more so like to pour myself into one thing and really perfect it. But in a startup environment, that's really not the best approach. You need to move quick. You've got to be willing to make mistakes and settle for imperfection in some areas. And so for me, it really changed by finding a team member that could manage a high volume of tasks, someone's brain that worked differently than mine. We started out working together. I'd give him a to-do list for the week, and he'd have it done Monday morning at 12 o'clock. And so, my expectations were completely blown out of the water just because, his brain worked differently than mine did. And so what I would say as you're going exploring to building a team is think about really think about what your strengths are, and really be honest with yourself and think about what your weaknesses are. Because when you don't have a lot of capital to hire a big team that does everything, you need to really focus on your strengths and get people to come in that fill in the gaps of your weaknesses. And I think that that would be my biggest recommendation in terms of team development.
Yeah, for sure. And to add on that, I agree completely, but I also think it's important to have people that can kind of be a jack of all trades, because obviously when you're starting out, you can't really afford to hire people that can only do one task.
Absolutely, yeah.
And do it really well. And I think that's something that obviously the team at Vertiball has been amazing for, just to keep the team so lean and small. But yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think, looking at what your strengths are, and like for me, for example, like I historically have been terrible with organization. And, it just so happened that one of our, Kelsey, our creative director, she's on the ball, like similar to what you're saying. Like you give her stuff to do and it's done. And then all of a sudden looking for more stuff for her to do. You almost got to try and keep up with their productivity.
Yeah, but that's what you need for sure.
Yeah. And for sure. And I think it's something that everyone's kind of got to learn for themselves is, your job as the CEO is to make sure all the pieces are working together and that it's efficient and you're moving as quickly as possible. And certainly self-awareness is extremely important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, dude. So you guys obviously had the opportunity to go on Dragon's Den. Got the deal.
Experience.
Got the deal done.
Yeah, for sure.
When did you guys go on? What was the date of that again?
September 4th of last year. So yeah, we're just a little over a year out from that.
That was when it was aired, or when you guys?
No, that was when we went in to do the shooting for it. So yeah, quite the interesting experience. I think my advice for anyone that's looking to do Dragon's Den, Shark Tank, those types of opportunities is it's a really awesome opportunity for exposure and for marketing. And I would suggest first and foremost, approach it from that perspective. In reality, more than there's so many deals on that show that they happen on the show, but they don't actually go through the process of closing the deal after the show. And you absolutely can, and it opens up the door to go do that. But it's not like you go on the show and, next week you're signing closing documents. Like there's, months of due diligence process, working with their teams, working with lawyers, really formalizing the details on valuation, shareholders agreements, things like that. So my advice to you, if you're going into that, is just try to aim for it to be as positive as an experience as possible. The mistake I did, or the mistake I made, sorry, was it was do or die mode for me. I'm like, I'm about to give up a piece of my company. I'm 100% ownership of this at this point in time. I need to price it right. Like I want to get the highest valuation possible. And so I knew that it was priced higher than what an investor likely would be willing to pay for it, just on like numeric standards.
Mhm.
But I wanted to push for it anyways, and I knew that it could result in some conflict. And I was nervous. I went in nervous, and there was they challenged it a lot. Luckily, they didn't show some of the heated debates that went on in the episode. There was quite an abundance of them. If you ever watch it, you'll see me trembling. But anyways, if you're going to do it, just go with a very reasonable valuation that makes sense of your historical financials. You can add a premium for if you have an innovative idea and you have a product roadmap, but just try to aim for it to be a positive outcome, because once you're done on the show, you can renegotiate valuation. Like all that stuff can be changed afterwards, so you don't have to think it's do or die mode and no, I'm not taking the deal. Just aim for a positive outcome would be what I'd suggest.
You're not signing your life away on airing.
No,
on the production
not.
side.
Yeah, for sure.
Right on, man. So you guys obviously launched as Vertiball, had the one product, and recently went through a rebrand to Symbodi Labs. Talking about the rebrand and the reason for that, I'd like to get into your kind of the thought process that went into that. I know it was a big debate, whether when's the right time to do it, and I don't know if there ever is a right time to do it. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's a big decision to make, especially when you have whatever it is, 60,000-70,000 customers who know your brand, and you're looking to make a big transition like that. What was the thoughts that led to that?
Yeah, so Vertiball was a product, and the way I thought about it is like, I want to have a brand that someone would wear on a t-shirt. I want to have a brand that means something to people beyond just the functionality of their products. Like, Apple isn't like iPad. Like iPad is a functional thing, but the Apple represents something so much more. And that's the true power of branding and the value it can add to your products, is if you can identify a philosophy that people want to get behind. Like Apple's original philosophy in when they came out with their Think Different commercial, it was like, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, and like so on and so on. And it closes, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And then it comes up with the Apple logo. They never once mentioned a product, but they defined this character. They defined this, this person that people wanted to identify with, like the people that think different. And so the brand became something so much more than any, functional element of a device. It became an identity. And that's the importance of, going beyond just the product. Like if you're going to try to make a multi-product company, I think you need to think about, when you come out with your next product, what is the overarching brand going to be? And we transitioned with the release of the second product so we could make sense of that to customers, because if we were just Symbodi with Vertiball, then it's sort of like, what is the purpose of having two brand names when we just focus on one for now? And sort of the philosophy with Symbodi is, human beings, we have this remarkable ability to use tools, and it's what sets us apart from any other species on the planet. Our tools, extend our physical limitations and allow us to do, remarkable things. And it's the symbiosis between our tools and our bodies that enables us to reach higher and further than ever before. And so the goal of Symbodi is to really focus on health and wellness in creating these tools that naturally extend our limitations so that we can be the best versions of ourselves in every day possible.
I love it, dude. Love you, dude. Always thinking so big. And no, I think that's awesome, man. And congratulations on the rebrand. I know it's you're kind of in the weeds of it right now, and I know it's a big move and not an easy decision to make, but I definitely think it's the right move, and can't wait for the future for Symbodi.
Yeah, it should be exciting.
Cool, man. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap this one up. Thank you so much, man, for agreeing to do this. I think there's a lot of good stuff for new founders that they can take away from this. And I think there's certainly, you're only just getting started. And like I said, super excited to see where the brand goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. And for all the founders out there looking to get their product off the ground, Ryan and Power Media were instrumental to our success out of the gate. We wouldn't be where we are without them. So if you ever need insight or just instruction on what is the right approach, definitely give Ryan a ring, because he's the man in all aspects of marketing for sure.
Thank you so much, man. That means the world. Appreciate it.
All right, Ryan, thanks for having me on, and we'll chat again soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.
You too. Bye.